Hello everyone. Today we will continue to develop our to-do application. In the last video, we have created a simple application with 3 different views. First one responsible for home view. Second for the contact view with the social media links. And the third one with the list of to-dos. We will focus on this part of our application today. We will add the functionality to add new to-dos to the list and also to edit the existing ones and also to delete them. So we'll provide the basic CRUD, and the CRUD stands for create, read, update and delete. Reading and displaying list of to-dos is already done because we did it in the last video. Now we'll focus on adding the functionality to delete to-dos from the list. In the first place, we will add the delete button, so we have to go to the view of our to-do list component. So over here inside our ngForm loop, we will add new span element with some bootstrap classes, and the first one will be batch, second one will be batch bill, another will be batch danger, so our button will be red, and also one custom class, delete, and between the span tags we will type the X. Now if we save it, we can see that for the every element on our list we have also the button to delete it. Now let's style our button, and we will use for it the delete class. So let's go to the styles. Over here, we want to reference our buttons using span.delete selector. And we want to move our buttons to the right side. So we will use the float property and set it to right. And now if we save it, we can see that the buttons are on the right side. We can also add hover effect. So to do it, let's type span to select the span element with the class delete, and we add the hover. And now over here we use the cursor and we set it to pointer. And also we will change the opacity to 0.8, like this. Now if we save it and hover on our button, we have the information that we have the ability to click it. Let's go back to our view, and over here inside the span element we will bind the function to the click event, and the function will remove the to-do from the list. So first thing we have to do is to type the name of the event between two parentheses. So in our case it will be click event. Now we have to use the assignment operator, and between quotation marks we have to type the name of our function. So it will be the function remove to do. Now we have to pass the instance of this object of every iteration to our function. So we have to type between the parentheses of our function to do, like this. Now we can save the file and go back to our component, and over here we can implement our function. The name of our function was remove to do, and we are passing to it to do to remove, which is the type of to do. Okay, now we have to iterate over this array, which is assigned to this variable. So we type this to-dos, and to iterate over this array we have to use the for each method. For each method takes function as an argument, and we will use the arrow function, which will have 3 different arguments. First one will be element, second one index, and the third one will be the array. Okay, and now we want to check in every iteration if the element ID is exactly the same as the ID of the to-do we want to remove. So we will use the if statement. And now using element, we want to check the ID property. And now we will check if this is equal to the ID of the element we want to remove. This way. So basically we are checking if the ID of the to-do we want to remove is matching any of the IDs in our list. Now, if it's true, we can reference our array using array parameter. And to remove element from the array, we will use the splice method. We have the information about the position of our element inside the index parameter. So we want to remove elements from the index, and we want to remove only one element, so we type 1. Now let's save the file and let's check if it works. And if we click the cross button, the to-dos disappear from the list. Great. Now let's take care of adding new to-dos to the list. So let's go to the view of our component, and somewhere over here let's create a div element with the class container and also add the custom one, and also inside add the span element with the classes add and the bootstrap ones like batch, batch bill, and also batch success. So our span will be green, and inside let's type add. Okay, and if we save it, here is our button. It does not look good now, so let's paste some CSS I have prepared. And if we save it, now it looks better, and also we have some hover effect. Great. Now let's generate new component, which one will be responsible for displaying form to add new to-dos. So let's split the terminal, and over here we type using Angular CLI ng generate component, and name will be to-do add, like this. And we have to wait a second to generate the component. Okay. So now we can close the console and move to the to-do add component view over here. I have prepared HTML template without Angular directives, which we will add later. As you can see, the template is just the simple form with the 2 inputs and 1 submit button. Let's check what is the selector of our component. It's app to do add. So now let's embed it inside the to-do list component. So let's go to the view. And now between the list and the add button, let's add a new div with the class from the bootstrap pt2. It will add some padding on the top of this element, and inside let's add the tags for our component. So it will be app to do add. Okay. Now we can see that I forgot to save the view of to do add component. So let's go back over here and let's save it. Now it's okay. Also, let's add some styles to these buttons over here. So let's go to the to do add component styles, and I will paste my styles over here. And when you save it, now it looks good. The problem is that we see this form all the time, and we want to see it only when we click the add button. So let's change it. To make it work, we have to go to our to-do list component, and over here let's create new variable, and let's call it is add button clicked, and by default set it to false, like this. Now let's save it and let's go to the view, and over here We can control what we want to display and what we don't want to display using Angular directive, and it's called ngIf. So we go to the container of our form, and over here we type asterisk ngIf, and after this we define the condition. In our case, we just will check the isAdd button clicked variable. So if it's true, and we will display the form to add new to-dos. We will do exactly the same with the container of our add button. So again, we type ngIf, and inside we are checking the isAdd button clicked variable, but now we will negate it using exclamation mark. Now if we save it, we can see that the form from the to-do add component disappeared. Now the problem is, if we click the add button, nothing happens. And that is because we are not handling any click event, and we are not changing the state of this variable. Let's add the click event to our span element. To do it, we have to use the parentheses, and between them we have to define the name of the event. In our case, it will be click. And now we have to assign the function which one will be called after this event happens. So let's call it show dialog for new to do, and also parentheses. Now let's create this function. So let's copy the name, and inside the class of our component, we will go somewhere over here. We'll paste the name of our function, and we will define the body. Every time we click the button, we want to set the isAdd button clicked variable to true. And now if we save it and we click the add button, the form appears. But now we have to handle the situation when we want to close this form. It will be much harder because we have to modify isAdd button clicked variable from the child component, and this component is todo add. So now let's jump to the class of todo add component, and over here we have to type some imports, and the first one will be output. Second one will be EventEmitter, like this. Now we can create variable which will be called isCloseClicked, and it will hold false by default. And this is the variable we want to emit. And to emit this variable, we want to create another one, and it will be called close adding event, and it will be the type of EventEmitter, and we want to emit the Boolean value. Like this. And now we have to assign the memory for this object. Okay. Now let's create the function, which one will be called after clicking the cancel button. So let's call it cancel adding task. And inside of this function, we want to change the state of isCloseClicked to true. And also we want to emit our variable. So we use the close adding event, and we use the emit method. And between the parentheses, we pass the isCloseClicked variable, like this. Okay, so we have the function, and now we have to bind this function to the event. So first, let's save this file, and let's copy the name of our function, and let's go to the view of our component. And over here in this span element, let's bind our function to the click event like this. And remember about the parentheses. So we have bound our function to the click event. Inside our function, we are changing the state of isClosed variable to true, and also we are emitting this value to the parent component. Now we have to catch this value inside the parent component over here. To do it, we have to go to the selector of our child component, and over here between the parentheses we have to pass the name of our event emitter, and it was close adding event. Now we have to assign the function of the parent component, which one will be responsible for handling this event. So it will be close adding event handler. And we have to also pass the event preceded by the $, like this. By saying parent component, I mean the to-do list component. Now let's implement this function. So first let's copy this and let's go to the class of our to-do list component, and over here let's paste it, and let's implement the body. We know that our child component will emit the Boolean value. So let's define parameter for our function, and let's call it isClosed, and it will be the type of Boolean. Okay. So now let's check if isClosed variable equal to true, and if it's true, let's change the value of our local variable, which is add button clicked, and let's set it to false. Okay. And as we remember, this variable over here is responsible for displaying this child component because it's inside the ngIf directive. Okay, so let's save it and check it out. So we are clicking add button, and now we are clicking close button, and nothing happens. And I know why, because we didn't mark our event emitter as output variable. So let's go to the to-do add component variable, and over here we have to use the decorator, and we have to use add sign and type output, and also we have to use parentheses. And now this variable is marked as output, so Angular will handle it inside the parent component over here. Okay, so let's give it one more shot, save it. We are opening the form, and now we want to close it, and it works. Now we'll do exactly the same with adding to-dos to the list. So first let's import something that is called ngForm from @angular/forms. We have to import ngForm because, as you remember, I pasted to the view of to-do add component the form to add new to-dos, and also we want to emit the object of type ngForm. Now let's create new event emitter, and now we are remembering about output decorator, and let's call our event emitter add to-do to list event, and it will be the type of event emitter, and we want to emit ngForm. Okay, and now assign the memory. Okay, now let's create a new function, which one will be responsible for taking the form and emitting it to the parent component. So let's call it add new to-do to list, and it will be taking one parameter, and it will be the form, from the view, and it will be the type of ngForm. And inside we want to use our EventEmitter, add todo to list event, and we want to call method emit, and we want to pass this form to our parent component like this. Okay, so now let's save it, and we have to go back to the view of todo add component. So over here I have prepared the form to add new to-dos, and one thing we modified is binding the click event to this span element, which one calls the cancel adding task. First thing we have to do is to take entire form and assign it to variable. And to do it in Angular, we have to type number sign and the name of our variable. Let's say it will be task form. And now we can assign to it the form using ngForm. Now we have the entire form inside one variable over here. Now let's bind the event to our form. And this event will be called after clicking submit button, which one is over here. So this event is called ngSubmit. Okay, and now we want to assign to this event our function. So now let's go to the class of todo add component, and let's copy the name of our function, and let's paste it over here. Because we assigned the entire form to the one variable, which one is task form, now we can pass this variable to our function like this. To work with forms, we also have to add imports inside the root module. So let's go over here, and somewhere here we have to type import forms module from add angular /forms. And also we have to add it inside the imports array over here, forms module, like this. Let's save it, and also let's go and save the template. Also, to make it work, we have to mark each input field with the ngModel directive, because otherwise we will pass empty form without any fields. Okay. Now let's check out if we are passing the values of these two fields to our function. So let's go to the class of our component, and over here in our function let's use console log, and let's display the task form object. Okay, let's save it. And now we want to add something. Let's say it will be ID 5, and it will be learn Angular task. And now if we click add button, let's open the console, and over here we have ngForm object, and here inside the form we should have the value, and as you can see we have ID 5 and task learn Angular, so it's okay. Now we can close it. I think it will be cool if we close the form after adding each of to-dos. So to do it, we will do exactly the same what we did inside the cancel adding tasks. So we will just copy this and paste over here. Okay. So we are passing the form to the function, and also we are emitting this form using add todo list EventEmitter. So now we have to catch this form inside the parent component. So let's go to the view of the parent component, and now we have to bind function to our event, where event was add todo to list event, and we will add the function that will be called add todo to list event handler And also we want to pass the event object like this. Okay, let's save it. Let's copy the name of our function, go to the class of our component, and over here we will implement our function. We also have to add the import of ngForm to this component. So let's type it. So we type import ngForm, and it is inside the add Angular/forms. Okay. Now it's good. Now we can go down and define the parameter for our function, and it will be todo form, and it will be the type of ngForm. Now let's check if we have the access to the values of our form. So let's use console log, and we will pass our form, and we will use value property. Okay, so now let's save it. Let's go to the web browser. Let's open the console, and we will add new todo. And as we can see, the data is here, so it is working. Okay, so let's close it. Now, basing on the form, let's create a new todo object. So first, let's delete this console log over here. And let's create a new object using const keyword. And it will have the name todo and will be the type of todo. And it will have two properties. The first one will be ID, and the ID will be inside todo form value ID, and the task will get from todo form value, and it will be task, I believe. Okay. Also, property ID was of type number, so we can check it in the classes. So ID is the number. So go back and cast the value from the form to the number, just in case. And also semicolon over here. Now we have to iterate over the collection of our todos, and we have to reference this collection by using this todos. And now we will use the for each method, and this for each method is taking function as a parameter. So we will use the arrow function with the element parameter like this, and inside we have to check if the element ID of the current iteration is equal to the ID of our object from the form. To do it, we can use if instruction, and the condition will be if element ID of the iteration is equal to the ID of the todo from the form, like this. Also, we will create the flag that will help us determine that we want to add a new todo to the list or not, and we will call it is ID on list, and by default it will be set to false. But if this condition will be true, we will set this variable to true. Okay. So last thing is to check if is ID on the list variable is set to false. So we will use exclamation mark to negate it. And if it's true, that means that this ID is not on the list of our todos. So we can push the todo to the list. And it will be something like this. We use the this keyword, We use the to-dos collection and we use push method. And the push method, we are passing the to-do object. And this is pretty much all. But we can also sort our to-do list by ID. And to do it, we can do this to-dos sort. Default sorting of sort method is not that good, so we will provide our own function. And this will be the arrow function with the A and B parameters. And inside the body of our function, we have to subtract the ID of the one element from the ID of the second element. And it will be something like this. Finally, we can test it out. So to check sorting, we can delete the to-do with ID 3 from the list. And now again, let's add the to-do with ID 3 with the text learn Angular. And if you click add button, we can see that the to-do is added to the list and also it's sorted, so it works perfectly. Okay, I think it's all for today. I don't want to make too long videos. We have added to our application ability to delete to-dos from the list and also to add new ones. By the way, we have learned how to use output decorator and how to pass variables from the child component to the parent component. In the next video, I will show you how to add to the list inline editing of to-dos. And also we will learn how to use input decorator to pass variables from the parent component to the child component. So see you next time. And I almost forget to ask you for liking the video and subscribing to my channel. See ya.